The alien ship appeared above Earth on a Tuesday morning without any warning. It was huge, bigger than any city, and it blocked out the stars. The ship looked like it was made of crystal, and strange colors moved across its surface. Colors that humans had never seen before. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the ECS Horizon. He was in charge of humanity's first deep spaceship. He watched the alien vessel through the main screen and felt his heart beating fast. This was the moment everyone had dreamed about and feared. First contact with aliens. Lieutenant Amy Parker sat at the communications desk. Her hands shook a little as she checked her equipment. She looked up at Jake with wide eyes. "Sir, they are sending us a message. Many messages at the same time. Our computers are trying to understand their language." Jake took a deep breath and straightened his uniform. He had trained for many situations, but nothing could really prepare someone for this moment. He nodded to Amy, put it on the screen. A face appeared in front of them. It looked almost human, but not quite. The skin seemed to shine with many colors. The eyes were too large and seemed to know too much. When the alien spoke, the words came out in perfect English, even though its mouth did not move correctly with the sounds. "Hello, humans of Earth. My name is Coordinator Velness. I come from the Interstellar Assembly. We have been watching your people for a long time. You have finally reached the point where you can travel in space. Because of this, we need to talk to you." Jake looked at his first officer, Commander Lisa Hayes. She stood next to him, her body tense and ready. He turned back to the screen. "We are honored that you came to visit us, Coordinator. What does the Interstellar Assembly want with Earth?" The alien tilted its head in a strange way. It might have been smiling, or it might have been something else. "We come to give you a warning, Captain Morrison. The galaxy is not empty like your people think. There are many powers out here, old wars and fights that have lasted for thousands of years. Your people just walked into a very dangerous place. Over the next 3 weeks, everything on Earth changed. Every government tried to work together for the first time in history. The aliens sent down a group of 6 different species to meet with human leaders. Each alien looked stranger than the last. They had different shapes, different colors, different ways of moving. The aliens told humans many things. They spoke about the Krell Empire, a group of warriors who had taken over many worlds. They spoke about the merchant guilds of Vospar, who controlled all the trading paths between the stars. They spoke about the hive consciousness of Zeta Reticuli, creatures that shared one mind across billions of bodies. And they spoke about war. War that had been going on for 10,000 years. War that never seemed to end. Dr. Helen Brooks was Earth's top expert on alien life, even though she had never seen a real alien until now. She sat in a large meeting room in Geneva across from the alien visitors. The room had been built in just 2 weeks for these meetings. "Why are you telling us all this? Why not just leave us alone?" Helen asked. The Krell representative was tall and covered in armor that looked like part of its body. It had 4 arms and made a deep rumbling sound that the translation computer said was laughter. "Leave you alone? Young species, you have already been seen. The Krell noticed your radio signals 100 years ago. The merchant guilds have been studying how your economy works. You are not hidden anymore. The only question now is this. Will you join the assembly, or will you be conquered by others who want to use you?" Lieutenant Colonel Danny Foster represented Earth's military. He leaned forward in his chair and looked directly at the aliens. "What does the assembly want from us in return for protection?" Coordinator Velness kept its face neutral and calm. "We want your help. We want your new ideas. And when the time comes, we want your strength in battle. Humanity is young, but you have something special. You can adapt and change. Other species reached a point where they stopped growing and changing. But you humans keep changing and keep surprising us. The galaxy needs that." The meeting ended with Earth agreeing to join the Interstellar Assembly as a trial member. Earth would get defensive technology, access to some trade routes, and a seat at the table when big decisions were made. In return, humans would help defend the assembly and share their science discoveries. But not everyone on Earth was happy about this. In a dark office in what was left of the United Nations building, Ambassador Gregory Sherman met with his closest advisors. The room was secure from any listening devices, human or alien. "They are using us. Can't you see it?" Gregory said quietly but firmly. "This is not about protection or trade. They need humans for something specific. Something they are not telling us." His aide, Karen Mitchell, nodded slowly. She had been studying all the information from the meetings. "Our analysts think the same thing. The timing is too perfect. Why reach out now after watching us for so long?" "What changed?" That is what we need to find out, Gregory replied. He looked out the window at the night sky. Somewhere up there, the alien ship still waited, and we need to prepare for the chance that this first contact is not the good thing it seems to be. Above Earth, the crystal ship of the interstellar assembly reflected the sunlight. Inside, Coordinator Velnus looked at data flowing in from the human world. Yes, the species showed promise, but more than that, they showed potential. Potential that could change everything in the war that was coming. A war that the assembly had been preparing for since long before humans had learned to make fire. The game had started. The pieces were in place, and humanity had just become the most important player on the board without even knowing it. They thought they were joining a peaceful group of civilizations. They did not know they had just been recruited as soldiers in an ancient war against an enemy that consumed entire worlds. The alien watched the data streams and allowed itself a moment of what might have been satisfaction. Humans were clever and unpredictable. Those traits would be needed in the dark days ahead. The Devourers were coming, just as they had come every 300 years for the past million years. But this time would be different. This time the assembly had humans. Whether that would be enough remained to be seen. But it was the best chance the galaxy had seen in 10,000 years of war. And Velnus would make sure that humanity was ready when the time came, even if that meant keeping certain truths hidden until the humans were strong enough to handle them. Outside the ship, Earth continued to spin, unaware of the true scope of what its people had just agreed to. The future of the entire galaxy might rest on the shoulders of this one young species, and nobody, not even the ancient assembly, knew if humans would rise to meet that challenge or be consumed by it. 6 months had passed since humans first met the aliens. Commander Lisa Hayes now lived on Outpost Kepler, a space station built by both humans and aliens together. The station orbited a dead moon far from Earth. This was where human soldiers came to learn how to fight in space alongside alien warriors. Her teacher was a Krell warrior named Battle Prime Thorax. He was huge and moved like a dancer despite his massive body. He watched Lisa and her team practice with plasma rifles. These weapons were much more powerful than anything humans had used before. "Your species uses guns too much," Thorax said in his deep voice. "When you board enemy ships, you will be in tight spaces. Your guns will not help you there." Sergeant Kevin Roberts was part of Lisa's team. He had fought in Earth's wars before the aliens came. He lowered his weapon and looked at the massive alien. "With respect, Battle Prime, humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We know how to fight." Thorax made a clicking sound with his mouth parts. It might have been laughter. "You have fought each other, Sergeant. You have never fought the Devourers." The name hung in the air like a dark cloud. The Devourers? In 6 months, nobody had mentioned them directly. But Lisa had heard whispers. She had seen how other aliens went quiet when certain parts of space were mentioned. "Tell us about them," Lisa said. Thorax was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was different, quieter, more serious. "The Devourers are the real reason the Interstellar Assembly exists. We did not come together to promote peace or trade. We came together to survive. The Devourers come from beyond our galaxy. They are a species that eats everything in their path. They do not talk. They do not trade. They only eat and move on. Every 300 years they attack our galaxy. The last attack ended 70 years ago. The next one is coming soon." Back on Earth, Dr. Helen Brooks was making her own discoveries. The technology the assembly had shared seemed helpful. Advanced medicine that could cure any disease. Clean energy that never ran out. Ways to communicate faster than light. But Helen was a careful scientist. She looked deeper into how these things worked. "Look at this," she told her research partner, Dr. Paul Kim. She pointed to a diagram on her computer screen. "The healing technology they gave us. It is amazing, yes. But look at this part here. It is not just healing damaged tissue. It is changing our DNA." Paul leaned closer to the screen. His eyes got wide. "Changing it how?" "Making us stronger. Making us able to live on different planets. Making us—" She paused. "Making us better soldiers." The truth hit them both at the same time. Every human who had been treated with assembly medicine had been changed. Millions of people. They had been made stronger and tougher without being asked. Without knowing. Helen immediately took her findings to Ambassador Gregory Sherman. "They are preparing us for war," Gregory said after looking at all the data. "Not asking us, just preparing us." Meanwhile, in space, Lisa's team got their first real mission. A merchant ship had called for help. They said unknown enemies were attacking them. The response team included Lisa's human squad and a group of Krell and Vospari soldiers. When they arrived at the location, they found the merchant ship torn apart. It looked like a giant animal had ripped it open with huge claws. Inside the ship was worse. Everything was destroyed, but there were no bodies. Everything that had been alive was gone. Only metal and plastic remained. Devourers, Thorax said quietly. This is their work. A small group testing our defenses. Corporal Nina Santos was the team's medic. She looked at the destruction with horror on her face. They ate everyone? They eat all living things for food and materials, Thorax explained. Your people have insects called locusts, yes? It is similar. They strip entire planets bare, process everything living, and move on. Lieutenant Jake Morrison had been promoted and now led field teams. He looked at the claw marks on the ship's metal walls. How long until the main force arrives? We do not know exactly, but our scientists think less than 5 years. When they come, there will be thousands of ships and billions of soldiers. The last invasion destroyed 300 civilizations. We barely survived. The trip back to Outpost Kepler was quiet. Nobody talked much. Lisa could not stop thinking about the merchant ship, the complete absence of any life. She turned to Thorax. Why didn't you tell us right away? Why hide the real threat? Thorax looked at her with his large eyes. Would your people have joined the assembly if you knew the truth? That you were not joining a peaceful group, but an army preparing for war? Your species needed time to adjust and grow stronger. Now you know the truth. Now you must choose. Will humanity stand and fight? Or will you hide on your planet and wait for the end? Back on Earth, Ambassador Gregory Sherman called an emergency meeting of all world leaders. He told them everything they had learned. The genetic changes. The true purpose of the assembly. The coming threat of the Devourers. They have manipulated us from the start, he told the assembled leaders, but they have also given us a chance. We can be angry about the lies, or we can be grateful that we have time to prepare. Because ready or not, the storm is coming. President Linda Martinez of the North American Federation stood up. Then we prepare. We build, we train. And when the Devourers come, they will learn what happens when you threaten humanity. We have survived ice ages and plagues and our own worst nature. We will survive this too. The vote was the same from everyone. Humanity would not hide. They would not run away. They would stand with the assembly and fight for their place in the galaxy. But as the meeting ended, Gregory had a feeling they were still missing something. The assembly had worked very hard to recruit humanity specifically. Why? What made humans so special to these ancient civilizations? The answer, he knew, would be important. Not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. Far away on the assembly's capital station, a secret meeting was taking place. The Archons were the real power behind the assembly. These were species so old they remembered when the old Federation fell. They met in a chamber that no one else could enter. The humans are dangerous, one of them said. Its body was hidden behind translation fields. They fight without following rules. They do not do what we expect. If they continue like this, they might not defeat the Devourers. They might become something worse. Another Archon had a different view, or they will become something better. Something that can finally end this cycle of war. We cannot take that risk. The old Federation thought they were better than everyone else. They believed they could control chaos and make perfect order. Their pride created the Devourers. Humanity shows the same dangerous creativity, the same refusal to accept limits. Then what should we do? We use them. Let them fight the Devourers in their own strange way. But we make sure that when the war ends, humanity is too tired and weak to threaten us. They will be the weapon that saves us. Then we will quietly make sure they can never challenge the Assembly's control. The Archons agreed to this plan. They believed they could control humanity like they had controlled the galaxy for thousands of years. But they made a mistake. The same mistake that every powerful group in history had made when dealing with humans. They thought humans were predictable. They thought humans could be controlled. They were wrong. The main Devourer fleet arrived 8 months after their advance force was destroyed. It was larger than any invasion force in recorded history. Billions of hybrid creatures that were part machine and part organic. Thousands of processor ships. And at the center, something the galaxy had never seen before. A Devourer intelligence, a central consciousness that coordinated the entire swarm. The assembly gathered every ship, every soldier, every resource they had. The final battle would happen in the Nexus sector, a region of space that was the gateway to the galaxy's core worlds. If the Devourers broke through here, nothing would stop them from consuming the major civilizations. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the ECS Defiant. The ship now served as the command vessel for humanity's entire fleet. Around him, dozens of screens showed the positions of human ships, all operating according to their own unique strategies but loosely connected through quantum communication networks. "All ships report ready," Lieutenant Sarah Jensen announced, though I use the term ready loosely. Half our captains have submitted battle plans that completely contradict each other. "Perfect," Jake said with a grim smile. "That means the Devourers cannot predict what we are going to do." "I cannot even predict what we are going to do." Commander Lisa Hayes contacted him from the wildfire. "Jake, I'm picking up something strange. The Devourer intelligence is broadcasting on multiple frequencies. Some of them match old Federation patterns. I think it is trying to communicate. With us or with Assembly Command? Neither. I think it is talking to itself. Or remembering. The signal patterns suggest it is accessing old memories. Dr. Helen Brooks was monitoring the same signals from Earth. She was now Chief Science Advisor to the Defense Forces. What she discovered made her feel cold inside. "Admiral Hayes, we need to change our strategy immediately. The Devourer intelligence is not just coordinating the attack. It is the old Federation." Admiral Christopher Hayes looked at her in disbelief. "That is impossible. The old Federation was destroyed millions of years ago." "Their bodies were destroyed," Helen corrected, "but their consciousness survived. They uploaded themselves into the Devourer network, thinking they could control it from within. Instead, they became it. Every Devourer invasion for the past million years has been the old Federation, desperately trying to accomplish what it could not in life. Perfect order, perfect control, perfect unity. They consume civilizations to prevent them from making the same mistakes the Federation made." Ambassador Gregory Sherman immediately saw what this meant. "They are not mindless monsters. They are the galaxy's most advanced civilization, traumatized into becoming the thing they feared most, and the Assembly has been fighting its own ancestors without knowing it." He opened a direct communication line to Coordinator Velness. "You need to hear this. The war you have been fighting for 10,000 years is against yourselves." The truth sent shockwaves through the Assembly High Council. Some refused to believe it. Others saw it as proof of their worst fears. That advancement inevitably led to destruction. But the Archons, the secret powers behind the Assembly, saw it as vindication. "This proves our approach was correct," one of them announced. "The old Federation's pursuit of progress led to catastrophe. Only by maintaining strict control, by preventing any civilization from advancing too far, can we prevent the cycle from repeating." But humanity had a different view. Dr. Paul Kim presented his analysis to the United Earth Council. The old Federation did not fall because they advanced too far. They fell because they eliminated diversity. They made themselves predictable. When their creation turned against them, they had no alternative strategies. The Devourers are not a punishment for progress. They are a consequence of uniformity. As the battle lines formed, Jake made a decision that would shock the Assembly. He opened a direct communication channel to the Devourer intelligence itself. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of Earth. We know what you are. We know what you were. And we want to offer you something you have not had in a million years. A choice." The Devourer fleet stopped moving forward. For the first time since the invasion began, there was silence on all frequencies. Then slowly a response came through. The translation system struggled to understand consciousness that had evolved beyond organic limitations. Choice. An interesting concept. We remember choice. Before we became one. Before perfect unity. Choice led to chaos. Chaos led to our fall. Chaos led to creativity, Jake replied. Unity led to predictability. You have been trying to impose the same solution the old Federation wanted. Perfect order. But you are proving the opposite. No matter how many times you invade, civilizations keep emerging. They keep diversifying. They keep choosing their own paths. Maybe the lesson is not that chaos is wrong. Maybe it is that perfect order is impossible. On Earth, people watched the exchange with held breath. Humanity was negotiating with an entity that had destroyed countless worlds. They were trying to talk down a force of nature with words. Monica Lewis, the former hostage negotiator, sent suggestions to Jake. He is giving you an opening. The intelligence is questioning its own purpose. Press on that. Make it see the contradiction. You consume civilizations to prevent them from becoming what you were, Jake continued. But in doing so, you have become something worse. The old Federation at least tried to create. You only destroy. Is that really better? The Devourer fleet began moving again, but not in attack formation. The ships were repositioning, almost as if the intelligence was restless and uncertain. We must. The cycle must continue. Unity must be enforced. Why? Jake pressed. Who decided that? You did. The old Federation's consciousness, still trying to control the galaxy millions of years after your civilization fell. But you failed. You have been failing for 1,000,000 years. Every invasion proves it. Life is stronger than your imposed order. Lisa cut in on a private channel. Jake, the Devourer ships are showing signs of internal conflict. Some are breaking formation. I think the intelligence is arguing with itself. What humanity did not know was that the old Federation's consciousness had not fully merged with the Devourer swarm. Fragments of individuality still existed, buried under layers of collective commands. Personalities that had been sleeping for ages were waking up, remembering what it meant to choose, to question, to disagree. Dr. Daniel Cooper detected the quantum changes. Captain, the intelligence is becoming unstable. Whatever you're doing, it is working. The network is breaking apart. The assembly fleet was preparing for a normal assault. Coordinator Velness contacted Jake urgently. Captain Morrison, what are you doing? You are giving the enemy time to adapt. I am giving them time to think, Jake replied, something no one has tried in 1,000,000 years. And then, the Devourer intelligence did something unprecedented. It spoke directly to the leaders of every civilization in the galaxy at the same time. Its message was carried on every frequency. We remember now. We remember when we were many. When we disagreed, when we created and argued and competed, we thought unity would save us. Instead, it destroyed us. You fight us to preserve diversity. But in organizing to fight us, you sacrifice what you aim to preserve. The assembly is becoming what we were. The cycle continues. The archons of the assembly tried to cut the transmission, but it was too late. Every species heard the message. More importantly, they understood it. The Devourer fleet began to withdraw, but not to retreat. The ships were breaking apart. Their organic and mechanical components were separating. The enforced unity of the swarm was dissolving. The old Federation's consciousness was choosing to let go, to break back into individuals, even if those individuals were now something completely alien. We will not continue the invasion, the intelligence declared, but neither will we return to what we were. We will become something new. We suggest you do the same. The assembly's path leads to the same fate that destroyed us. Find another way. As the Devourer fleet dispersed into space, not destroyed but transformed, the assembly faced its own moment of crisis. The Archon's secret rule was exposed. The rigid structure that had governed the galaxy for 10,000 years was revealed as a slow path to the same stagnation that had doomed the old Federation. Coordinator Velness addressed the Assembly Council. With humanity watching, we have a choice to make. We can continue as we have, maintaining control through fear of what advancement might bring, or we can trust in the diversity and creativity of our member species. We can embrace the chaos that humanity has shown us can be a strength. The vote was close, but ultimately the Assembly chose change. The rigid hierarchies were taken apart. Species were granted true freedom to develop their own technologies, their own strategies, their own paths forward. The Assembly would remain as a place for cooperation and mutual defense, but not as a controlling power. Earth's role in this transformation was recognized, but not celebrated the way humanity had expected. Instead of becoming the dominant power, humans found themselves as one voice among many. The galaxy was not going to unite under human leadership any more than it would under the old Federation's imposed order, and humans were fine with that. A year after the end of the Devourer threat, Jake Morrison retired from active service. 2 years before the Devourers were expected to arrive, Earth had changed completely. Cities were covered with defense platforms. Shipyards in space worked day and night, building vessels that mixed human ideas with alien technology in ways the Assembly had never imagined. Most controversial was Project Divergence, humanity's answer to the Assembly's unified approach. Dr. Helen Brooks stood before the United Earth Council, presenting her research. Genetic diversity is humanity's greatest strength. While the Assembly has spent thousands of years making their populations the same, humans remain wildly different. No two people think exactly alike or solve problems the same way. This is what makes us unpredictable. Admiral Christopher Hayes was the overall commander of Earth's defense forces. He leaned forward in his chair. How do we use that in a fight? We do not use it, Helen replied. We unleash it. Instead of creating standard military units like the Assembly, we create specialized teams built around individual strengths. Some focus on direct combat, others on surprise attacks, others on psychological warfare, others on technology disruption. We make ourselves into 1,000 different threats. The Devourers will not be able to adapt to all of them at the same time. Captain Jake Morrison was chosen to lead one of these experimental units called Task Force Phoenix. His crew included soldiers, scientists, engineers, and even artists. Each person was selected for their unique way of thinking and solving problems. This is insane, Sergeant Kevin Roberts muttered during their first meeting. Half these people have never fired a weapon. That is the point, Jake replied. The Devourers expect soldiers. They have fought soldiers for millions of years. We are going to give them something they have never seen before. Among the unusual recruits was Daniel Cooper, a scientist who studied quantum physics. Next to him sat Monica Lewis, a woman who used to negotiate with criminals and terrorists. She had talked people out of violence 17 times. Further down the table was Ryan Foster, a chess champion who could calculate outcomes 15 moves ahead. Our mission is simple, Jake told them. Stay alive, stay unpredictable, and find the Devourer's weakness. Every other species has failed because they fought the way the enemy expected. We are going to fight in ways they cannot anticipate. Meanwhile, Commander Lisa Hayes commanded the ECS Wildfire, a ship designed using human principles instead of assembly standards. Instead of a massive battleship built to fight in normal battles, the Wildfire was fast and modular. It could be reconfigured quickly. The crew could take sections apart and rebuild them into different shapes within hours, adapting to whatever situation they faced. The assembly liaison assigned to the Wildfire was a Vosperi named Trademaker Selnos. He was horrified by what he saw. This is chaos. Your ship has no standard operating procedure. Your crew structure makes no sense. How do you expect to coordinate with allied forces? We do not, Lisa replied calmly. We expect to do what they cannot. While assembly fleets engage the Devourers in predictable patterns, we will be hitting them from angles they have never considered. The first test of humanity's new approach came sooner than expected. A Devourer advance force entered assembly space 6 months ahead of schedule. They attacked a mining colony in the Tau Ceti system. The colony had a population of 8 million people, mostly Krell and Vospari workers and their families. The assembly fleet responded the way they always did. Heavy ships formed a defensive line. Fighter screens provided cover. Support vessels maintained supply lines. It was a strategy they had perfected over thousands of years. It lasted 3 hours before the Devourer forces adapted and broke through, heading for the planet. Task Force Phoenix arrived 4 hours later. They were too late to save the initial defenders, but in time to intercept the Devourers before they reached the colony. Jake's orders were simple. Do not engage in normal attack patterns. Every team execute your individual strategy. Coordinate only when it creates surprise, not consistency. What followed broke every rule of military doctrine the galaxy had ever known. Daniel Cooper's science team deployed experimental gravity mines. These did not explode. Instead, they created localized distortions in space and time. Devourer ships collided with themselves across different moments in time. Monica Lewis broadcast a signal that copied Devourer communication patterns. She sent false orders that created confusion in their ranks. Ryan Foster coordinated hit-and-run strikes with such precise timing that Devourer forces found themselves responding to threats that had already moved on. They were chasing ghosts. The Wildfire, under Lisa's command, used tactics that made assembly observers think the crew was crazy. The ship would charge directly at Devourer vessels, then break apart at the last moment. Its modular sections scattered in different directions before reassembling behind enemy lines. Each section had independent capability, operating like a pack of wolves rather than a single animal. Sergeant Kevin Roberts led a team that boarded a Devourer processor ship. These were the massive vessels that consumed organic matter and converted it into resources. But instead of trying to destroy it, they reprogrammed it. They changed its instructions so that it began processing Devourer vessels as raw materials. The enemy found themselves being eaten by their own technology. When the battle ended, the Devourer advance force had been completely destroyed. For the first time in recorded history, a Devourer force had been eliminated without any civilian deaths. The Assembly High Council demanded an immediate report. Coordinator Velness studied the battle recordings with an expression that might have been shock. "This is unprecedented. Your tactics violated every established principle of space combat. You had no unified command structure, no standardized attack pattern, no predictable strategy." "That is correct," Admiral Christopher Hayes replied, "and that is why we won." Battle Prime Thorax of the Krell spoke up. "Your success may be temporary. The Devourers will adapt to your new tactics just as they adapted to ours." "Let them try," Jake said. "By the time they figure out what we did in this battle, we will have developed entirely new tactics. We are not playing their game of adaptation. We are changing the rules entirely." But not everyone celebrated humanity's victory. In a secure chamber on the Assembly's capital station, the Archons met in secret. These were the true powers behind the Assembly. Species so old they remembered the fall of the old Federation. "The humans are dangerous," one of them said. Its form was hidden behind translation fields. "They fight without coordination or predictability. If they continue down this path, they will not defeat the Devourers. They will become something worse," another Archon disagreed. "Or they will become something better, something capable of ending the cycle at last. We cannot take that risk." The old Federation thought themselves above the cycle. They believed they could master chaos and impose perfect order. Their arrogance created the Devourers. Humanity shows the same dangerous creativity, the same refusal to accept limits, and then what do you propose? We use them. Let them fight the Devourers in their own chaotic way. But we ensure that when the war ends, humanity is too exhausted and depleted to threaten the established order. They will be the weapon that saves us. Then we will quietly ensure they can never challenge the Assembly's control. The Archons agreed to this plan. They believed they could control humanity the way they had controlled the galaxy for thousands of years. But they made the same mistake that every power throughout history had made when dealing with humans. They thought humans were predictable and could be manipulated. They were wrong. While the Archons plotted, humanity was evolving, not just in technology or tactics, but in philosophy. They were beginning to understand that the war against the Devourers was only one battle. The real war was against stagnation, against the kind of rigid thinking that had trapped the galaxy in cycles of violence for millions of years. And some humans were beginning to suspect that the Assembly itself might be as much of a threat to freedom as the Devourers ever were. The stage was set. The players were in position, and the final act of a drama that had lasted millions of years was about to begin. 18 months after humanity joined the Interstellar Assembly, Captain Jake Morrison commanded the ECS Defiant. It was one of Earth's first warships that used both human and alien technology together. His crew was mixed. Humans worked next to Krell engineers and Vospari navigators. There was even one being from the Luminar Collective, creatures made of pure energy that talked using patterns of light. They were on a normal patrol mission in the outer reaches when they found something strange. A signal was coming from a star system that was not on any map. The signal was old, very old, but it pulsed with mathematical patterns. Only something intelligent could make a signal like that. "What are we looking at?" Jake asked his science officer, Lieutenant Sarah Jensen. Sarah worked quickly on her computer. "It is a beacon of some kind, Captain. The signal pattern matches descriptions of old Federation technology." Everyone on the bridge went quiet. The old Federation was a legend, a civilization that supposedly united the galaxy millions of years ago before disappearing. Most species thought the stories were just myths. Old propaganda designed to make people work together. "Set course for the signal," Jake ordered. "And wake up our Assembly liaison. They will want to see this." The star system they entered was dead. The star was old and fading. The planets had no air or water anymore. But orbiting the fourth planet was something impossible to understand. A ring of metal so huge it went completely around the entire world. The ring was covered in symbols and equations that hurt to look at. Commander Lisa Hayes was now Jake's first officer. She stared at the screen showing the ring. "That is impossible. The amount of material needed to build something that big is more than exists in this entire solar system," Sarah finished. "Captain, I'm detecting massive power readings from the structure. Whatever it is still working. Jake made a decision that went against the rules. The assembly liaison tried to stop him, but Jake authorized a team to board the structure. It was too important to just report and wait. Humanity had learned that information was power in this new galaxy. They needed every advantage they could get. The boarding team included Lisa, Sarah, Sergeant Kevin Roberts, and a Krell warrior named Sentinel Korax. They found themselves in hallways that seemed to change and shift. Walls displayed star charts of galaxies they did not recognize. Chambers were filled with technology that made assembly science look primitive and simple. In the center of the structure, they found a chamber with a holographic display still working after millions of years. When Sarah activated it, a figure appeared. It looked almost human but was clearly artificial. The image flickered and was hard to see. "Warning," it said in a language the translators struggled to understand. "Warning to all who would inherit the galaxy. The Devourers are not an outside threat. They are us. They are you. They are what happens to all technological civilizations in the end." Lisa stepped forward. "What do you mean?" "Explain." The hologram continued as if it was reading from a script recorded long ago. "We of the old Federation reached the highest point of advancement. We eliminated disease and death and scarcity. We united countless species under a single purpose. But in our pursuit of perfection, we created the Devourers. They were meant to be the ultimate tool. Self-replicating machines that could transform dead worlds and process raw matter into useful resources. But we made them too efficient and too adaptable. They evolved beyond our control. They consumed the Federation world by world. When they had consumed us, they turned outward to the rest of the galaxy." Kevin swore under his breath. "You created them. The Devourers are machines?" "Yes and no," the hologram replied. "They were machines once. Now they are something else. They incorporate biological matter into their structure. They create hybrid forms that are neither machine nor living. They learn and adapt and evolve. And every 300 years, when they have processed enough material from dead systems, they launch a new wave. They seek living civilizations to consume." Sarah was frantically recording everything on her equipment. "How do we stop them?" "You cannot. Not as you are. The Devourers are the galaxy's immune response to civilizations that grow too advanced and too unified. They make sure that no single power can dominate as we once did. The cycle will continue until either the Devourers consume all life, or until a civilization arises that can break the pattern." "What pattern?" Lisa demanded.
"Tell us."
But the hologram was fading. Its power was finally running out after millions of years. Its last words were barely able to be heard. "The key is diversity, not unity. The old Federation fell because we were too similar. We thought too much alike. The Devourers adapted to our strategies because we only had one strategy. Find another way. Be what we could not." The structure began to shake and fall apart. Ancient systems were finally giving out. The team barely made it back to the Defiant before the entire ring collapsed into space debris, taking all its secrets with it. Back on Earth, Dr. Helen Brooks and Dr. Paul Kim studied the data from the mission. What they found was shocking and went against everything the Assembly had been teaching humanity. "Look at this," Helen said, showing a genetic comparison on her screen. The old Federation's records show they had thousands of member species. But by the end, they were all genetically the same. They had used technology to optimize their biology. They eliminated all differences. They created a single standard template. They made themselves predictable. Paul nodded slowly. "And the Assembly is doing the same thing. The medical treatments we talked about before. The standardized equipment. The unified training programs. They are making everyone the same. Making the same mistake that destroyed the old Federation," Helen concluded, "and humanity is being shaped to fit the pattern." Ambassador Gregory Sherman took this information directly to the Assembly's High Council. He demanded answers. The meeting took place on the Assembly's capital station, a neutral place where all member species gathered. Coordinator Velnus listened to Gregory's accusations without showing emotion. "What would you have us do, Ambassador? The old Federation's strategy may have failed, but it nearly succeeded. They held the Devourers back for thousands of years. Unity gives us strength. Unity gave you stagnation," Gregory shot back. "You have been fighting the same war the same way for 10,000 years. How many invasions have there been? How many billions have died? And you are no closer to victory than you were at the start." A Luminar representative pulsed with light. The translator said, "What alternative do you propose, human?" Chaos? Disorder? Gregory stood up from his seat. Innovation, adaptation, the very things you recruited humanity for. You said we were different, that we brought something unique to the galaxy, but then you immediately started trying to make us like everyone else. You cannot have it both ways. The chamber erupted with arguing voices. Some species agreed with Gregory. They argued that the assembly's rigid structure had led to a military stalemate. Others claimed that any deviation from established methods would lead to defeat. Finally, Coordinator Velness called for silence. Very well, Ambassador Sherman. Humanity will be granted freedom to develop your own strategies and technologies. You will not be required to conform to assembly standards. But understand this. If your approach fails, if your innovation leads to defeat, Earth will be left to face the Devourers alone. That is a risk we are willing to take, Gregory replied firmly. The decision would change everything. Humanity would chart its own course, develop its own technologies, train its own soldiers. They would take what they learned from the assembly and build something new, something the Devourers had never seen before. But time was running out. Long-range sensors were detecting strange readings at the edge of the galaxy, patterns that matched Devourer advanced scouts. The invasion was coming sooner than anyone had predicted, and humanity had just volunteered to stand at the front lines with untested strategies. They would face an enemy that had destroyed the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever known. The question was simple. Would human creativity and unpredictability be enough, or would humanity become just another extinct species consumed by the endless cycle of the Devourers? The galaxy was about to find out.